Kevin, we mentioned the president's post a moment ago. The AP's lead just now is Trump appears to rule out negotiations with Iran, says U.S. will help Iran rebuild after the war. Have we budgeted for that, and what does it do to domestic priorities?
You know, I can't talk really about the timing of the war. That's something that's, ultimately the opponent needs to be surprised by, and the president needs to decide on his own. But the fact is, it's going way faster from my early briefings about what was going to happen and how it's going to affect the economy. It's going way faster and has been way more successful than I expected just listening to the briefings. I think that the bottom line is that there's some disruption right now. But at the White House, we've got our eyes on the horizon. We believe that we're going to have a world with a much more stable Venezuela, a much more stable Iran, that is a very reliable and safe supplier of energy, which will reduce risk premiums around the world and be cause for celebration. And that horizon isn't really very far off, we don't believe.
Boy, that would be, I don't know, man. It's a little bit, that's a bit of a Pollyanna, but I think you meant it to be like this is the best case possible, and I get that. I want to revert to what is going on with productivity. And when you talk to the Jensen Huangs at NVIDIA, you see what they're up to. Transportation and warehousing employment, a job loss in couriers and messengers, minus 17,000. Again, I mean, what we're trying to do is to make people more productive, but that also means that some of these categories are going to be marginalized. What do you do with the fact that we're getting more productive, but there will be fewer people in a profession that right now is counted by the Labor Department and might go away?
Right. Well, again, what's happening is that the more senior people are getting huge advantages from the AI, and there is, in some professions, there's a lower demand for the rookies. But those rookies are going to find a position for them that then, when they use their AI, is going to allow them to increase productivity and have high wage growth. The way to think about it in the end is, like, how do we take the average of all these things that are going on? And the way you do that is you think about, like, what's one of the most AI automated sectors in the economy? It's manufacturing. And we just talked about how manufacturing wages are up $2,400 year over year. And so manufacturing workers have probably never seen a better year. And in part, that's because of AI. And so I think that the pessimists really need to understand that as the U.S. gets richer and richer, that it creates more jobs for folks, and it's a good thing. In the end, that some people's professions may change, but with a much richer economy, there are many more places for them to go.
All right, so Kevin, we happen to have Vlad Tenebo on. He's from Robinhood later, and I believe in investing in America. You believe in investing in America. Yeah. Do you believe in putting hard-earned assets into the prediction market, which invests in nothing?
The what market?
The prediction market, about whether you and I are going to have a job next year. You know, the prediction market, the funny stuff.
Oh, the prediction market.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
Is that replacing the investing market?
I've actually written a bunch of academic papers about prediction markets over the years. I think that they've shown that they're better at predicting outcomes in elections than polls and so on. And so I think that they have their use. It is something that I'm more of a hard asset kind of investor myself. Basically everything that I invest in is in the public domain, and it's basically treasuries and publicly traded things, mostly index things. But prediction markets have their use, and they're very, very useful for policymakers because they help you see what markets are thinking about the probabilities of different things that we have to follow as policymakers.
Right, or at least those with the money to bet in the first place.
Right.
Kevin, on crude, what is the response trigger to SPR release? Is that even in the mix or the discussion right now?
I'm involved in every discussion about energy prices, and we have certainly followed every possible scenario and have a plan for it. But there has been no discussion that suggests that anytime soon that would happen. The bottom line is our expectation is, given the extreme success of our military, that the things that oil markets are concerned about will be less and less relevant relatively soon.
I mean, there is quite a robust debate right now about whether or not a tanker crew would be assured enough by a Navy escort or insurance from the Development Finance Corp to go, given the number of mines that are not only in the water, but that Iran still has the capability of deploying.
Right. Well, it's something that we're following very closely, and we have a high regard for the military that is putting together a plan to make sure that we can get ships through.